Hey everyone, welcome to 2025. And I know that it's been a week technically since we've had um, this new year upon us, and I am excited to be here. I'm just going to adjust my screen here because I'm preparing. We have some news updates in terms of what's happening in our Edmonton real estate market. And I've been watching my past videos. So before I hopped on here, I was looking at 2021, 2022, and every market update I'm doing in the beginning of January, I say the market's inventory is really low. It's lower than it ever has been. And guess what? I am here to say the exact same thing. Now, what's interesting is I didn't start doing these updates until we had our global pandemic. And when I did that, that's when the market just started to shift in such a large way that it really hasn't shifted back. Prior to 2019, our market was fairly predictable, very seasonal in terms of the winter months, summer months, spring months. And then, even every 5 years with election, that also, like provincial election, that also impacted the market stats in a very predictable way. But ever since I started doing these in 2020, the market has always been very unpredictable. The numbers don't make sense and there hasn't been this rhyme or rhythm. Now, we have returned back to the seasonal type of activity in terms of quieter in the winter, busier in spring and summer, but we have seen in the last few years, we've seen the fact that interest rates were low, then went high, then just stayed same, and then it's starting to come back down again. Don't worry, it's not going to come back to in the 2%. That would be really weird if that did happen. No one's seeing that on the wall at all. But the rates are in a good place in terms of if you're looking to buy, they've become more competitive. I've noticed that the banks have become more competitive too, and that's something I will talk about in a video that I'll post on Fridays. That's also new, guys. I'm back at it, and there'll be videos that are coming every Friday that are new and recorded. So if you want to see some topics, just make sure you comment, and then I'll make sure to include that in my considerations. One of the things I'll be talking about is the difference between a mortgage broker and working with a bank. With banks being so competitive with their rates right now, a lot of people just assume that it's better to just go with a cheaper rate. And so we're seeing a lot more people go towards the banks. But there's huge advantages of working with a mortgage broker, and I'll talk about that in another video. This video, okay, let me hop into the listings because when I was with you last in December, so only a few weeks ago, we were at 1,600 active single family home listings in Edmonton. And I was like, this is really scary low because typically we don't see a ton of activity and new listings come up over the Christmas break. And it stays pretty plateau in theory. And then it starts to build up into January, February, but usually March, right? It's usually pretty quiet. But look how many current active listings there are right now. 1,307 active listings in Edmonton, which that is low, guys. When I looked at the stats when I did this in 2022, so 3 years ago, we were at 2,000 listings, and I said that was low. So just think about that in context. 3 years ago, I said 2,000 was low, and today, 1,300 listings. That is scary low. We haven't seen even this scary low since in the pandemic. We did have quite a very low number of stats. So it's interesting to go back and take a look at what has been happening. I do have a playlist. If I don't, I'm going to make sure it's just specifically all these live updates, and you'll see you can go back into 2021, 2022, and you can see how low things were low then. And you can see it's much lower now. The other thing that you want to notice as well is that the sales. So pending sales in Edmonton were 97. So we've had a very strong sales number over the Christmas break, even though, because normally the sales are lower. And so that 1,600 number would have not changed too much over the last few weeks. It would have been maybe at like 1,500 or something like that. It wouldn't have changed substantially. But the fact that it went down to 1,300 means that it has been very strong in sales for the last couple weeks, which is not normal and not typical because at the end of December, it's usually pretty quiet. Now, what is happening? Why are so many people buying houses right now? One of the things that you have to consider is that people are realizing that there's not much on the market, and they're realizing that this coming spring will indeed very likely be very, very, very busy and very competitive. If you are a buyer looking to purchase a home in the next 6 months, I'm letting you know you have to be ready for all the things, including multiple offers. Again, we have seen this in the last half of 2024, and we saw it in spring and summer market. It wasn't always there. You weren't always guaranteed a multiple offer if you were a buyer or a seller, but a lot of our listings, we had multiple offers. I want to say almost all of them. I have to go and look at my stats and see, but it was very, very common. And multiple offers can be anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to I had upwards of 20 offers on one listing in October. So you have to understand as a buyer, be prepared. And what does that mean? It is very important who you work with for your mortgage. Make sure that you are able to have that in place. It is very important when you're working with a realtor that they know how to compete and win in multiple offers, because that is really important. The combination of the two is going to help you win. We saw a lot of offers accepted last year. We didn't lose very many, if any. I can't even remember. I honestly have to check. Our clients tend to win their offers. So you have to be set up though. It's not just this miraculous thing. And if you're looking to go, hey, I have to sell to buy, how's that going to work? And I don't want to move out of my house until I find the house I want to go into, because this is my like next home with my family. I can't just sell my house and then be homeless. So there are strategies in how we do this, and depending on what kind of home you're looking for, where your house is currently located, all that type of stuff. We will juggle that with you in terms of sorting out what makes the most sense. Do we get your house ready for sale, sell it with a longer possession, and then look for a house? Do we look for a house and then have you put your house on the market immediately and sell it right away? There's so many different options, and it depends on your personal situation, not just the market. So we have to look at all of those things. If you are thinking about that, you have to make sure you're looking at all of the things, not just, I want to buy this house and I have to sell my house. Well, I want to know more. I want to know what's happening with your work. I want to know what's happening with your life. Are you traveling? Like, all these things have to be taken into consideration to kind of do what we can to relieve as much stress as possible. A few years back, when it was very crazy, like I think it's going to be this year, we still were able to help a lot of clients sell and buy without having them without a home. So it's very important to note that this, I believe that it's going to lead up to the same type of year that we saw a few years ago when the market was very busy. So the minute you go into that home, when you leave that home, you need to know if you're going to write an offer. So as a buyer, you might be thinking, well, I don't want to be pressured into buying a home. No one's pressuring you except for the market, unfortunately. Realtors aren't pressuring you. They're just trying to make sure that they help you get the house that you want. You just don't have as much time to think about that. So what you can do beforehand, do a consult before, so you can do a lot of thinking before you get out there, so you know what you're looking for. So I want to show you last 7 days for sold. 76 properties sold in the last 7 days. And is this compared to last year? No. 7 in the last 7 days. Oh, well, my son usually helps me prepare this, and clearly we don't have last year's numbers here, because 76 and then that doesn't make any sense. Last year, the sold here don't make any sense. So let's do this. Let's pop up and take a look at some stuff. Now, if you're watching live and you have some questions about market stats in general in Edmonton, that's what we're going to cover today. So please go ahead and comment in the comments, and I'll make sure to let you know what's happening. So I'm just going to share my screen with you so you can see what we're going to look at here. We're going to take a look at the solds and what happened last year at this time. 2024, from January 1st until January 6th. Single family in Edmonton. That doesn't make sense. That's 2025. Okay. So from January 1st to January 7th, 2024, you see 120 properties sold. And if we change this to 2025 for the same 68 properties sold. So we had a lot less homes sell in the same 1 week span, but that doesn't mean that there's going to be lower sales altogether this year. Like I said, we have a lot less inventory, a lot less homes for sale to buy right now. So you can't even buy as many properties because there's not as many properties available. If we take a look right now at what is for sale in all of Edmonton, we have 1,306 listings, like I told you. And then if I take a look, what's pending right now? We have 278 properties pending, which means they're under contract. That's not included in the active available homes. And then we talked about sold. That was like the 68 number. So, yes, do 7 days back, about 80 this last 7 days. So that's kind of what you're seeing for this week. Now, if we take a look at different areas, I'm going to show you Rosenthal. Oh, one property sold in the last 7 days. Let's take a look at that one. $530,000, 2-story. Green grass. Looks like a bit of a smaller house. But if you're watching, $530,000, that's what this gets you in Rosenthal. I've actually seen this house before. So $530,000 used to get you quite a large home. This is not small, but it's not massive either. If you're looking for a house bigger than that, then you know 550 and up is what you're going to be spending for a newer home. And let's just go back 12 months. So 148 properties sold in all of Rosenthal last year, minus the one, of course, that we just saw that sold. And their prices range from $318 to $770 with the average price of $530 for sales. Now, that's what has sold. These ones are the townhouses that are stacked townhouses with no basements, with the garage on the main. And then you've got these are the townhouses with the detached garages in the back. And you can see how much things are selling for. They're like listed for a certain amount and then they go for a certain amount. This one price listed at $415, sold for $439, listed for $429, sold for $440. This is April, May, right? Like things are selling for over list. These ones sold that doesn't make sense. It says it sold for less, but it's the same price. This is a little higher, like $4,000. That was February. But you can see in the spring market, the 20 to 30K more than list price is being quite normal. And we saw that even in other areas I was looking at in like Jasper Park area, everything's selling for 20 to 50K over list. And this is dependent on how the prices were like calculated and priced. Sometimes it's priced too low, sometimes it's priced too high. Sometimes it's priced right at market and the property still goes crazy. I mean, look, this 585 sold for 600. 759 sold for 738. So you can see there's still things coming down. This one still came down, right? This one went up a couple thousand. So there's not a general rule, but I'm very conservative in terms of making sure you're not hunting for something you can't get. And things are a little different when it comes to what was I going to say? Things are a little bit different when it comes to the higher price point as well. So if we are looking at homes that sold, I'm just going to get rid of this, over 900,000, let's do a million actually, in Edmonton in the last year, we had 351 properties sell. And if you take a look at over $1 million price point, it was the lowest was $1 million all the way to 4.2 million with an average of 1.47. So most of the homes in Edmonton are selling in the lower 1.5 million versus the 3s and 4s, right? Because that's not a typical price point in Edmonton. And you can see there's still strong sales in the higher luxury market because we're still having, but you can see like we're in the 56 It's still in the million range until we hit 1.3, 1.5. We're at 250 properties, all under 1.58, right? So majority of the 351 properties are under 1.5. And then now we start to get into the higher 1.9s, and then 2 million starts at 308. So about 40, what's the math there? 308 for, I can't do math right now. 350, 348, right? No, 308, 351 minus 308. That's how many properties were sold. Over $2 million in Edmonton. And you can see a range of different types of homes here, right? They are like brand new to resale to backing on lakes. So there are homes in Edmonton that are still selling in that higher range. But the most popular range, I'm not going to show you all of them because it's going to be too high. It used to be 300 to 400, but you can't really get a ton of that now. So if you're looking at 500 to 600,000, there was 2,602 properties sold in the last 12 months. And then if I go 400 to 500, there was 4,272 properties sold. So the peak of that bell curve would be the 400 to 500,000. Now let's take a look at 300 to 400 though. Yeah, 2797. Because now at this point it's a lot smaller. So you can see the jump in sales between 4 to 5. What that means for you as a buyer, if you're looking to buy a house in 4 to 500, you will be competing with a lot of people. Absolutely. If you're selling a house in the 4 to 500, you will be in a very good position to sell that house almost instantaneously. And if you're selling a house in the 4 to 500 and you're upgrading to 800 to 900, let's say, there's only 309 sales. So then you have a little bit of an advantage when you're purchasing on that side. Now I see some comments, and so I'm going to go back to that and answer some of your questions here. All right. Is it expected that the number of international migration will decrease in the next coming year due to the recent change in immigration policy? Would this new trend in immigration drag Edmonton market? Well, that's a good question. I don't have a crystal ball. And also, the immigration is only one part of our market stats or how it affects sales. You have to understand that international migration is not the biggest thing that's actually driving our Edmonton market. The biggest migration that's happening is the inter-province within Canada that is affecting the market. If you take a look at the international migration numbers versus what's happening on the province, that's huge. It's much bigger than the international migration. So I don't think it's going to drag the Edmonton market. It definitely does not impact the market as much as it would be. And so in your question about rental market more than resale, that's something that I really don't think it's going to affect your resale. The property values have nothing to do with migration. The property values have to do with demand, right? Demand in general for sales. It's not specific to a certain people group or who's coming from what province or whatever. And also there's a lot of local Edmontonians that are realizing that our values have gone up and it's just what it is going to be. It was crazy at the beginning and thinking, how could a house be worth that much money here in Edmonton? But now that's just the new normal. So you're also having to consider people just needing to move in general. Edmonton is a very young city, and as the city grows, the city is going to move in houses because they can't stay in that necessarily. So that's something to consider. Let's take a look at this other one. There will be a huge wave of mortgage renewal to higher rate in 2025 and 2026. Considering Edmonton's affordability, would this affect the market in any noticeable way? So we actually had a wave of mortgage renewals in the last few years. I know for myself, I had to renew my mortgage in 2024 already. We saw a lot of it come in 2024 and 2025. It's going to be coming. There's not a huge difference. I'll tell you this. The interesting thing about the interest rates is though the rates are higher than they would have been when you were buying if the mortgages were 1% and 2%. I mean, we were at 2.7%, and I think our current mortgage is over 4. Our mortgage payments don't change that much. It wasn't a monster change like double the mortgage payment. What happens is that you pay less in your principal. So the affordability in terms of month to month is still affordable. It's just unfortunate to watch the principal and interest kind of, instead of it both being paid equal, it's just kind of doing this. So that's annoying, but you can also beat that in terms of putting extra money down every year if you can save up and do a prepayment option. So make sure, depending on your mortgage, if you get a penalty to do a prepayment mortgage or not. That's important to know too. But I don't think it's going to affect the market. What's going to affect the market this year is the fact that we have nothing for sale. That's the reality. So you have nothing for sale. You look in an area and the buyers are like, "Oh, I don't see anything." Now, there's part of the normal process that every buyer has, whether it's this market or another market, that they're not finding their dream home, or they're going to wait till they can find that home. But the reality is that that home that you're waiting for probably just doesn't exist, or it existed 20 years ago. Why do I say 20 years ago? Because you want the price from 20 years ago and you want the house of today. And so unfortunately for the buyers, they do have to come through a process to understand what are they willing to compromise. It's not that you're compromising the house that you want. You have to understand what the market's willing to give you for what you're looking for. So we can stay in your budget, but then you have to adjust your location or the type of house you want. And for me, location is non-negotiable. Location is the number one rule in real estate that you should not compromise on ever. Like, unless you're talking about um, like Rosenthal versus Granville, like that kind of idea. But in terms of, oh, should I live in Edmonton or should I live in Timbuktu? Like, I'm not going to live in Timbuktu just because I can buy a house for $500,000 cheaper, right? Because it's important where you're buying. So make sure you understand that. In Edmonton itself, we've got different suburbs that are less money. So Spruce Grove saw a huge increase in sales last year because it was more affordable than all the other subsets. And I've never seen so much growth in Spruce. Plus, there's a lot of new builds being built there, right in between Spruce and Edmonton, right when you first come in. That has been a very hot spot, and the properties aren't as cheap as they were. They've gone up for sure 10%, if not more, with the new builds there. I was able to find some of my clients under 400 and low 400s for a single family detached. Now those exact homes are 450 and higher. And I suspect the prices will continue to increase as the months go on. So if you are looking to purchase, now would be better to purchase than 6 months from now, because the prices will go up. You will have even more competition in 6 months. Actually, you'll have more competition in 2-3 months. It's not going to be that long that you'll have competition. A lot of people want to move in the summertime and they want to sell and get all that stuff lined up. You're looking at March, April, May as being the busiest months. And that's why in Edmonton, that typically is the busiest time of year for real estate. So that's really important to understand when you are thinking about, should I sell? Should I buy? What's happening with Edmonton real estate market? Make sure you tune in every week to take a look at what's happening with the stats. But then once you get to the point where you're like, okay, we got to make plans, make sure you talk to a realtor to go into the stats and update you on the market in the specific areas you're looking for. I'm giving you the general temperature of our city in terms of the market. Our general temperature right now is definitely hot. Should I say hot? Yeah, it's hot because there's like nothing to buy, and usually things are snatched up pretty quickly, and that's not typical for so early on in this year. It usually takes a while to warm up, but I do believe that's going to happen. We have 2 properties coming on the market this week. In 2 different price points, and we're going to see what's going to happen. One is over $1 million and one is I think it's over 6. So they're not in the 3 to 400, sorry, the 4 to 500 hot price point. So it might not be as quick as those ones, but we'll see what the market does this year. Because I think even houses that were sitting for a while last year or the year before aren't going to sit as long this year. There's a lot of adjusted expectations that have happened. So with that, I think I'm going to end our wrap or thing today, but come next week and we will talk more about the different areas, and make sure you tune in on Friday for a new video. If you subscribe, then you'll get notified. Talk to you guys later. Bye.